What's up, dolls and dollettes? Well, hold on a second. I'm not necessarily sure what to call guys, but everybody out there. What's up, guys? So it's me, Sheila, your relationship expert. So I wanted to talk about one thing in particular. So we are near the end of 2019, and I wanted to ask you guys. Usually, people go into the next year with all of these resolutions. I want to change my body, or I want to change my hair, or I want to change my money, my finances, my career. Like you go into the next year wanting to be better. But have you ever thought about wanting to be better in your relationships? Have you ever thought about it? What about your relationship resolutions? I gotta say that 3 times. Relationship resolutions, because that's beginning to be a tongue tie for some reason. So anyway, but have you thought about it? Have you thought about how can you go into 2020 with a better relationship? It could be with your significant other. It could be with your children, or if you're the child, it could be with your parents. It could be with your siblings, your cousins, your family in general, or it could be with your friends. So think about it. If you have relationships all around you, and if there are some or one, or it could just be one, but if you have any that are strained, then you could go into 2020 with a new way of looking at things, a new way of doing things, and a bonded relationships. And the truth is, if you're like me, you don't have to wait to 2020. You can do it right now. You can start today on getting your relationships in order, right? So let's talk about it. So first thing is conflict. How do you resolve conflict in your relationships? So conflicts basically are people trying to fight for their right. When you come to the table, any table, a relationship table with your siblings, with your children, whatever, you're coming to the table with everything that you have to offer, all of your experiences, all of your, everything that you know about what you've learned over the years. And whatever those things are, you're coming to the table with that. But on the flip side of that, whoever you're talking to or whoever else is in the conversation with you is also bringing their things to the table. So there's got to be a certain amount of acceptance in relationships. So the first thing is in order to resolve conflicts in relationships, you have to be able to accept that people are different, and they think differently, they do things differently. And when you begin to understand that people are different in the way that they think, in the way that they handle things, in the way that they do things, in the way that they believe in things, it's easier for you to get through the conversation. So the first thing about conflict resolution is acceptance. And let me just remind you real quick that the reason I'm talking about conflict is one of the things I would like for you to think about going into 2020 as far as a goal or a resolution is to have better relationships. Because if you have a better relationship, you can come out on the end of a good thing, and that's just for real. So first thing is acceptance. When you accept people for who they are, the way that they think, and everything about it, then it's easier for you to understand that the conflict is there because you're not you're not accepting that other people have a way of thinking too. You have to be accepting. You have to be willing to accept people for who they are. I've said it many times, and hopefully you guys are hearing that. But the second thing is, one other way that you can resolve conflict is have a plan before conflict happens. So think about this. So let me give you a quick story. Years ago, and I've said this, I use this in some of my workshops all the time, so this is nothing new to the table. But so my husband and I, 2019, just celebrated our 10 years. Woo woo us. All right, so we celebrated 10 years of marriage, 11 years being together all together. So about a year and a half to 2 years into our relationship, my husband and I got into this really big argument, and we were like verbally just kind of going at it, right? And I remember how, I don't even remember what we argued about, but I do remember how it made me feel. I remember in the moment thinking, tomorrow I'm leaving this. Like, I'm out of this. I'm not doing this. Nobody got time for that. I was hot-heated and not trying to hear it. I was verbally disrespectful. He was verbally disrespectful. But going into it, we didn't have a plan. I never thought about having a plan of conflict resolution, before the conflict ever happened. So once we were in it, we were in it. So what we did with in the listen, remember Maya Angelou says people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And that's exactly what happened to me. Like, I remember how I felt in that moment of disrespecting my husband and him disrespecting me. We were just kind of going at it and fighting to be right. But what happened is later on I realized that I was tripping. And when in the moment, when you realize that, well, when I realized that I was tripping, and what I knew for a fact is that his good outweighed his bad. And I did not want to leave him for that one moment. Like, I can see if he was just an asshole all the time and he wasn't good to the core. And I often say good to the core because the way that you were raised, your thoughts, your values, your morals, all of that stuff is what I mean when I say good to the core. So if somebody is good to the core, you don't necessarily want to get rid of that. You want to hopefully make things better with that. So in that moment, a little later, I realized that had been disrespectful, and I immediately started to feel embarrassed that I had talked to him that way, and that our relationships had turned to that point. But what we did is something key. We decided in that moment, once things had calmed down and we began to talk again, we decided to have a plan before going in, and that anytime that one of us felt that the conversation was about to turn south, that it was okay for one of us to just say, let's come back to it a little later. And the other person, because we were agreeing to it right then, the other person had to walk away as well. Although in the moment, you want to feel like, okay, no, we're going to get through this thing. We're going to talk about it right now. But if someone in the moment is feeling like the conversation is going to go wrong, we stop it right then. And we come back when we're both more calm, and when the conversation can go a bit more respectful, right? So, all right, so that's the second thing. So the first thing about resolving conflict is acceptance. Accepting people for who they are, accept that they believe things differently, they do things differently, they know things differently. That's the first thing. The second thing is having a plan before you actually get to the table or in the place of a conflict. The third thing is respectful communication. So you hear effective communication all the time. I have this thing where I talk about respectful communication, and basically it is exactly what it says. Respectful communication, of course, goes both ways. You guys have somebody who's going to talk. You got to have someone who's going to listen. You can't do them both at the same time. And although we know that on a basic level, for when you're in the midst of an argument, you forget all that shit go down the drain. You end up talking about, you end up, wanting to fuss in a moment and argue at that very moment. But if you take a moment and just listen, and you can take mental notes of things that you want to, or even physical notes if you want to. But if one person is talking and you have some things that you want to combat, or you want to at least challenge or whatever, think about it. You can say, okay, well then let me make sure that I say this, or okay, I'm gonna come back to that. I'm gonna come back to this, or whatever. And then when it's your turn to talk, the most important thing today is to use respectful words. And in my workshops and things that I give, I often talk about using respectful words, because you can choose. All of your words are basically chosen, but you can choose to say some things that's going to be disrespectful. You can have the best message, but your tone can be jacked up. And if your tone is jacked up, your message will go on deaf ear. So let's think about it real quick. I won't hold you too much longer, but I want to make sure that you get this. And going into 2020, hopefully, if by chance you're listening and you have an estranged relationship with someone, it could be a child, a significant other, a child, a parent, siblings, cousins, co-workers, friends, whomever, someone that you want to resolve conflict in, or you want to get back to a basic relationship with someone. Take a moment to yourself and check yourself before you even go into it. But let's talk about the real things. Let's not be afraid to have the hard conversations and the difficult and uncomfortable conversations, because those are the ones that gets us through life for real. So take a moment, think about what you're going to say, how you can say it that's going to be presentable, how you can say it that's going to be received well by the other person. And that basically start with, at the basic level, respectful communication. Listen, I hope you guys are geared up for 2020. Guess what I got? So my whole relationship things. I have two daughters. One of my daughters is Kristen. She's 20. She'll be 28 next Wednesday on New Year's. So she'll be 28 on New Year's. She's dating and has been dating her guy for a while. So she's going to bring that to the table. Well, let me say, and then I have another daughter, Sydney, who's 19 years old and not dating. But we're going to have three people on this podcast, on this whole thing, on this whole relationship conversation now. So it won't just be me, but it'll be the three of us, and you have three different perspectives, which I love because again, everybody think things differently and do things differently. So I hope that you guys will receive them well. They are excited about the whole thing, but we will see y'all soon. Happy 2020, y'all. Bye.